Welcome to Quick Course Digest. Today, we're tackling a big one, business ethics. Now, you might think this is just for corner office executives, but it's everywhere. It shapes everything from massive global supply chains right down to the culture of your local coffee shop. Really, it's about those tough calls. The big questions that don't just define our careers, but, well, the kind of world we all want to do business in. So let's get right into it.
And the stakes? Oh, they are incredibly high. Just listen to this from the legendary investor Warren Buffett. Lose money for the firm, and I will be understanding. Lose reputation for the firm, and I will be ruthless. Wow, think about that. You can always make more money, right? But a lost reputation? That's almost impossible to get back. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Trust and integrity, they're the most valuable assets any company, or, hey, any one of us can possibly have. So that leads to a pretty simple question, right? But the answer's not so simple. What does good business really mean? Is it just about maximizing profit no matter what? Or is it about how you make that profit? Who actually benefits from our business decisions and who might get hurt along the way? To even begin to untangle all this, we're going to need a toolkit, a set of frameworks to help us think through these really tough calls.
All right, let's build that ethical toolkit. And the good news is, we don't have to invent it from scratch. For literally thousands of years, philosophers have been wrestling with these exact same questions. And their ideas, they give us some really powerful ways to look at the dilemmas we face in the workplace today. First up, we've got virtue ethics. This goes way back to the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. And this approach, it's not about a checklist of rules. Nope, it's all about character. It asks a really simple but powerful question. What would a person of integrity do right now? The whole goal is to build up virtues inside yourself, things like honesty, courage, fairness. Aristotle thought this leads to something he called eudaimonia, which isn't just plain old happiness, it's more like a deep sense of human flourishing, of really living a good life. Okay, next we have a totally different way of looking at things, utilitarianism. This is what's called a consequentialist theory. Fancy word, but all it means is that you judge an action purely by its results, by its consequences. Thinkers like Jeremy Bentham champion this, and it basically boils down to a kind of moral math problem. The right choice is always the one that creates the most good for the most people. Simple as that. And then there's deontology. This one is most famously tied to the philosopher Immanuel Kant. And honestly, it's pretty much the polar opposite of utilitarianism. For a deontologist, the consequences don't matter at all. Seriously, they're irrelevant. What matters is your duty. This way of thinking says some actions are just fundamentally right or wrong, and we have a moral duty to follow universal rules, like don't lie or don't steal, no matter what happens as a result. So yeah, you can really see the clash between these two big ideas right here. On one side, you've got the utilitarian, who's laser-focused on the consequences, asking what's going to make the most people happy. For them, the ends can justify the means. But on the other side, the deontologists, they're not even looking at the outcome. They're looking at their moral duty, saying, hey, some things are just wrong, period. And you see this tension in business all the time, right? Like, is it okay to bend a rule a little bit if it leads to a much better result for everyone? These frameworks don't give you simple answers, but man, they definitely help you ask the right questions. Okay, so we've got these powerful tools from philosophy. Now, let's put them to work on the biggest player in the modern economy, the corporation itself. How has our idea of what makes a good or responsible company even changed over the years? And wow, it has been a long and pretty wild ride. If you look at this timeline, way back in the age of mercantilism, good business was basically about grabbing as much wealth as you could for your home country. Then, boom, the Industrial Revolution hits, and the focus shifts almost completely to maximizing profit for shareholders. And that often came with some pretty devastating costs for people and the planet. It's really only in the last, 50 or 60 years that we've seen this huge shift towards a much broader idea of what a company is responsible for. And that brings us to one of the absolute biggest debates in business today. On one side, you have the classic view, shareholder primacy. This idea says a company's only real social responsibility is to make as much money as possible for its investors. That's it. But then there's the more modern view, stakeholder theory, which says, hold on a second. It argues that a truly successful company has to balance the needs of everyone it touches. We're talking employees, customers, suppliers, the local community, the environment, the whole shebang. So this bigger, broader perspective is what we now call corporate social responsibility, or CSR for short. And the core idea is pretty simple. A company isn't just some machine for making money, it's a member of society. And just like any member of society, it's got obligations, to operate ethically, to help the economy, and to actually improve the quality of life for everyone it affects.
Okay, so how do companies actually do this stuff? A really popular way to think about it is the triple bottom line, which you'll also hear called the 3 Ps. It's pretty straightforward. Instead of just focusing on the old bottom line, profit, this approach adds 2 more. You've got people, which is all about the company's social impact, and you've got planet, which measures its environmental footprint. It's just a much more complete, more holistic way of thinking about what success really looks like for business.
All right, let's bring all these ideas right into the here and now. I mean, the business world today is just filled with new, super complex ethical challenges. Everything from figuring out social justice issues to dealing with the impact of crazy fast technology. A huge focus for businesses right now is diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. And let's break that down real quick. Diversity is just about having a mix of different people, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. Equity is making sure everyone has fair treatment and a fair shot at opportunities. And inclusion, that's about creating a place where every single person feels like they're valued and they actually belong. And look, beyond just being the right thing to do, there's a killer business case for this. Study after study shows that diverse teams are way more innovative and better at solving problems. And that leads to better results, period.
And why is this so critical right now? Well, because our workplaces have totally transformed. Just look at this one stat. In the US, the number of women in the workforce almost doubled in just 40 years. That's an incredible shift. And we've seen similar huge changes with all sorts of other groups too. So ethically and practically, our businesses have to change to actually reflect the society we all live in. And at the exact same time, we are smack in the middle of a massive tech revolution. A major study from McKinsey projected that up to 800 million, that's 800 million jobs around the world, could be displaced by automation and AI by 2030. I mean, that number is just staggering. And it creates this enormous ethical challenge for all of us, for businesses and for society as a whole. This really forces us to ask some deep, deep questions. Like, what responsibility do companies have to the people whose jobs are replaced by their technology? How do we make sure that all the amazing benefits of AI are shared by everyone and don't just make the gap between the rich and poor even wider? These aren't just business problems, you guys. These are some of the biggest ethical questions of our generation.
Okay, so we've talked about the big theories and the huge challenges. But what about you? How do you actually apply this stuff in your own career? When you're facing a tough call, how do you make a good decision? Well, it really comes down to having a solid compass to guide you. Here is a really clear 7-step process you can use in pretty much any situation. And it all starts with the most important step of all, just stopping. Taking a breath and realizing, okay, this is an ethical issue. From there, you can state the problem clearly, get all the facts, and brainstorm your options. Then, and this is key, you test those options using those frameworks we talked about earlier. Finally, you make your choice, you act on it, and you keep an eye on how it plays out. It's a really logical way to work through situations that can feel super complex and emotional. But at the end of the day, no framework, no process in the world is going to work without this one absolutely crucial ingredient: integrity. It's just what the slide says. It's the unity between what you say and what you do. It's the bedrock of trust. You can have all the ethical toolkits in the world, but they're only as good as the integrity of the person using them. It really is the bridge between knowing what the right thing is and then actually doing it. So, from Aristotle's ancient virtues all the way to the modern triple bottom line, we've seen that business ethics, it's not just one simple thing. It's a toolkit for thinking. It's a huge debate about responsibility, and it's a real challenge to navigate the messy, complex world we live in. And all of this brings us to the ultimate question, a question that every single one of us is going to face in our careers, probably more than once. It's that moment of truth, when all the abstract ideas become a very, very real choice. When profit and principle collide, which one will you choose? Your answer won't just define your career. It's going to define your character,